rights. What about America's human rights abuses?
Jeffrey Sachs, who is the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University, was on the BBC where he called out media propaganda by ripping apart the first question he was asked on the BBC. So I'm going to play this clip for you and discuss it.
I'm joined now by UN advisor Jeffrey Sachs, who's also the director of the Earth Institute, which looks at how to promote the mitigation of human-induced climate change, and the lawyer and human rights activist Teng Biao, who's exiled from China and is now a professor at Hunter College in New York. Jeffrey, if I can begin with you, the Biden administration has been strongly critical of China's actions on human rights, but engaging on climate change. Do you see that as a strategy that can actually work?
I'm not sure why BBC started with listing only China's human rights abuses. What about America's human rights abuses? The Iraq War, together with the UK, completely illegal and under false pretenses. The war in Syria, the war in Libya, the continued sanctions against civilian populations in Venezuela and Iran, walking away from the Paris Climate Agreement for the last 4 years, unilateral trade actions that have been deemed illegal by WTO. So one can make anything one wants, but we have really serious human rights violations by the United States abroad, not to mention an insurrection on January 6th in our own country, not to mention the continued massive racism, white supremacism, and abuse of incarceration of hundreds of thousands of people in the U.S., Black, African-American people of color. So I think that the whole premise of this story is a little bit odd.
No, but sorry, I'm looking. We have to look. If I may, we have to look.
I found the framing of it not what I expected. I thought we were going to talk about climate change, which we should. But I think that the idea that there is one party that is so guilty, how can we talk to them, is just a strange way to address this issue.
Well, hang on. Sorry, Jeffrey. If I could come, Jeffrey. I'm hoping we can have a conversation. I'm hoping we can have a conversation.
All right. I'm not sure you'll see Jeffrey Sachs on the BBC again. I do want to make it clear, I see no issue with calling out China's human rights abuses, but Jeffrey Sachs is making the point here that when discussing human rights abuses, mainstream media in the West only ever brings up America's enemies. There's human rights abuses, as he listed there, a lot of them, all across the world that are caused because of America and its allies, whether it's, the war in Iraq, sanctions on various countries around the world that only really work to hurt the people in those countries, the Saudi-led war in Yemen, the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinians in the occupied territories. So we can go on and on and on with that. But he makes the correct point here that it's odd to only ever focus on the human rights abuses by America's enemies, or I should say the American government's enemies, as opposed to looking at human rights across the globe. And of course, this is not just an issue in American media, also clearly an issue on the BBC and British media. So a very rare moment here for someone to be invited on a mainstream media show and call them out, but this is one of the best examples that I've seen.